Hello and welcome to Nonic Nonsense, a show where the host opinions are like Andrew Lloyd Webber musicals on Broadway, going on for way too long. I am Kat Gold. Currently, Michael Matterdomini is in rehearsal, so he's not here. But today, I am joined by the lovely, the talented Jordan Gonzalez.
Hi, Kat.
Hi, Jordan. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Surviving the winter, surviving the
Surviving the
cold.
winter. Yeah, that's the name of the game.
Oh, jeez.
Yes.
At
Well,
least you'll be here soon. It'll
I
be
will.
and it's so warm. It's like 80 degrees. It's lovely.
Oh, bring it. I can't wait.
Literally. It's like it's such a gift after leaving the north. Just like heat, like leaving the airport and just like warmth, humidity, sunlight. A miracle.
Oh, and then I'm extending my Florida time, so I'll be in Florida for all of February. And
Oh,
that
hell yeah.
that feels like a real win right there.
That is what are you gonna do?
I'm gonna do, this hasn't been finalized yet, but I'm gonna do a workshop with the young singers of the Palm Beaches at the Kravis Center.
Hey.
Yeah, and then spending a week with my sister and her three children.
Oh, that's fun.
Spending some time with family and doing a little extra work, but yeah,
Yeah,
mainly
yeah.
kind of trying to prolong the trip so I can stay away from,
Avoid the snow.
yeah, and the ice.
Yeah, yeah, no. I was just like, how long can we be here without involving like so I think I'm staying down here until like the second March. And then I gotta go up to Rhode Island for like a bit and then I fly out for like whatever. But like, yeah, no, I'm like, how much of the snow can I avoid? How much of the bitter, stinging coldness can I avoid while getting paid to do so?
Ah,
That's a but anyway, so I like to start off these by asking you, how did you get into theater? How did you get into the performing arts? What was your
oh,
gateway into it?
my gateway into it was definitely singing. I started
Yeah.
singing when I went and saw, probably no one's gonna know who this is, but I went and saw a Tom Chapin concert. He wrote children's music, and I saw it at the old amphitheater at the Kravis Center in West Palm.
Mm-hmm.
And I went home after this concert. It was my first concert ever. I went home and I told my dad that I wanted to sing one of these songs for the neighborhood Christmas party, and that's where it all began. And so I started singing. My dad played the guitar, and he was so excited that I was into music, of course. And then it just, it grew from there, doing all the performances, and then went to Dreyfus for theater, Dreyfus School of the Arts in West Palm. And then that sort of just sealed the deal.
Yeah. So you were a Dreyfus kid.
I was a Dreyfus kid. Yep.
Oh my goodness. What was that experience like? Because I remember being like as a South Florida kid and like being a forming kid, like my I thought like the the goal, like the top thing that you could do is like go to Bach and then go to Dreyfus. And like that was not my journey because my mom was like, you are not being a fucking performer. That's crazy. I am currently her worst nightmare. But so what was that experience like for you?
In a lot of ways, it felt a little bit like shell shock because I went to a private Catholic school from kindergarten through eighth grade, and I
Mm-hmm.
didn't do the middle school, the performing arts. And so going into Dreyfus, where almost everyone had come out of the Bach programs and conditioned into Dreyfus, freshman year especially was just, I mean, everything about it was new.
Yeah.
And those Bach kids were intense. I was like, holy crap. Like, I just like to sing. I'm not really sure what's going on here because, that like true theater kid living in that persona. And yeah, it was an interesting transition for me, for sure. And I also, because of the intensity, it actually sort of turned me off to performing for a minute. And I was like, I'm not this. This is not, I'm not here to like play a part. I want to figure out if I'm any good at this. But all that to say, I ended up going towards the technician side of things.
Hmm.
And I did that all the way through my junior year. And I was assistant technical director for, what was it, Fame and what was our other show? Last Night at Ballyhoo. I don't remember. But
Yeah.
I was on the technician track. And I was like, I think I might want to do this and I might, be a technician moving forward. And then senior year, I got the lead in the musical. I played Polly in Crazy for You.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then from there I was like, okay, well maybe I will audition for these BFA programs, and I did
Hmm.
that and got into Belmont as a BFA musical theater major, and that was, that's kind of what opened it all up. But yeah, it was an interesting time at Dreyfus because it was so intense and so competitive that my
Yeah.
first 3 years in a performing arts program, I didn't perform.
Yeah. So I think we were in school around like the same time, and so like I remember going to I would do like the master classes at the Kravis when like the national tours would come in, and you would go, sing with them or take dance classes or whatever. And like same thing with like thespians, like state like districts and whatever. And I just remember it being, now I will say that the culture has kind of changed when Michelle Petrucci started like being there full time, because those kids, people like Matter Domini and stuff, are like way calmer, got their stuff together. But at that time, it was intense. And I remember like going to magic classes and having those like kids like talk down to me, and I was like, what am I doing wrong where like people are so intense and like so crazy? But I think it was just it was a different time, and I feel like things have mellowed out a little bit. But also it just makes sense that you were doing technician stuff, because like I feel like the most calm, well adjusted theater people did tech.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's really like, I mean, I know for me, it sort of formed who I became as a performer.
Hmm.
Because I had done this thing that is such a real career and like, I mean, it's just as hard and all in all the different
Yeah.
ways. But like going into being a professional performer, I was able to approach it differently. And I think it really served me because I was never an asshole. And some of these kids who were like on the extreme track of being a performer and never did anything else, they really missed the whole picture. And it
Yeah.
showed.
Yeah, no, there's definitely like,
That's my take.
no, no, no. It's the correct take. It's when people in their development of studying this craft don't do all facets of it, they are just missing big pictures of how this whole machine operates.
Yeah.
And when you don't have an appreciation for what is going on in these other things, theater becomes a solely ego based career. And that is terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, so it makes sense completely to me. But I tell people all the time, my first job in theater was working as a wardrobe person for an opera company, like working like for a year, being wardrobed solely. Like that was my job, because I wasn't getting shit in shows. And I was like, well, I love theater and I love every aspect of it. So if I can work and make money in like the industry, I'm gonna fucking do it, and I'm gonna do it gladly. So like the people that have never done, pro tip to all the students that are listening to this podcast, do tech. Do tech. Broaden your horizons.
Do it all.
Anyway, so enough about like the Dreyfus stuff. So tell me about Belmont. Tell me about college.
College. I think I'm excited that there is this shift, I think, culturally and
Mm-hmm.
generationally, that college doesn't have to be the path for everyone. And
Yeah.
I love that, and I'm seeing more and more of that, and I am definitely in support of it. And I'm so grateful for my education. And I think anybody who's on the fence, I think the big thing is like those connections that I got at Belmont are what propelled me into my career.
Yeah.
So it is all about who you know every single time. And if you're in a 4-year program, you get 4 years of the people you're going to know and those connections that you build and the networks that, it builds your network. So
Yeah.
that was a huge part of Belmont, besides the fact that it was an amazing small program. I
Hmm.
loved that it was a liberal arts situation, so I took other classes. I studied religion, totally geeked out on that. I studied psychology. Um, and at least for me, having, again, and it kind of goes back to like being a technician for most of high school and just having this more well-rounded approach to being a performer.
Yeah.
Um, I think it more than anything just like gave me the stability to be in the professional world for however long I did that, what, 8 years or whatever. Um, and yeah, I loved my time at Belmont. I mean, Nashville was amazing as well. Like
Oh
living in
yeah.
like Nashville for 4 years was so much fun. And again, like that broader scope. We had commercial voice majors, we had songwriting majors, we had the classical voice majors, and part of our credits as part of our they were called convo, and you had to go see certain performances and go to different events and lectures and blah 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 blah, and you got credit for them. Um,
Yeah.
and so I think that setup was really spectacular. Um, and yeah, I really appreciated my time at Belmont. I think that the program was strong. It's still strong. Um, no regrets there.
That's great. Yeah, there's there's a lot like whether or not to go to school, and I and I think it's very case by case. If you have the means to go and do individual lessons for everything and make connections that way, do it. Do
Great. Good for
that
you.
that was not an option for me. I relied on my grants and scholarships so I can get the education that I needed. But and I do not regret it. I loved like my school and stuff. Um, but it's nice to hear what you got out of it.
Yeah.
What because a lot of people feel like it's just like requirement, but it's nice to hear the things that you got out of it.
No, I think it was really valuable, at least for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
I think some of it too, like the piece that some people miss in terms of like a 4-year university, which again is
Hmm.
not everybody's track, but you figure out who you are.
Yeah.
And you do it in a way that's structured and safe, and it gives you community. And
Hmm.
through all of that, you get to figure out who you want to be and how you want to show up. And I think as performers, that's like the first thing you have to figure out. Because if you walk into an audition room and you don't know who you are, you're never going to get cast.
Yeah. Yeah. That I will say that like that is so true. I will say that sometimes the one downside of some of these BFA programs, and I think it's case by case situation with who is instructing and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Sometimes schools will pop out the cookie cutter, and
Oh,
then
for sure.
people don't know about being themselves because they're like, well, I did this and I wore the jewel tone dress and the tan
My
shoes and like,
God.
and I'm singing the same song that like seven other people in my program were given, and I don't know why it's not clicking and working and stuff. So like you need the growing up
Yeah.
to make all the connections and stuff, not only for like connections in the job but connections for you.
Yes.
Yeah,
Putting the pieces together.
just figure it out, kiddos, figure it out.
Good luck.
So for when you left Belmont, did you immediately start working in theater? Like what was that like?
So I spent the summer after graduation working at an all-girls sleepaway camp for the
Mm-hmm.
whole summer. And then I moved to New York City. and I lived on my friend's futon for
Mm-hmm.
a month with so it was a two-bedroom apartment, four people living in it, two cats and a guinea pig.
God bless.
And then I think towards the end of that first month, I found an apartment actually with somebody from Dreyfus. So
Oh,
again,
cool.
all about who you know. Um, and then I got all settled into that apartment. I don't know. I was there for less than 2 months, and then booked my first gig, which was with Viking Ocean Cruises. So that's how it goes in New York, though. You get settled, you find your place, and then you leave.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's why I'm always like I'm gonna go to New York, but like I'm always like, watch, I show up, I get a fucking place, and then I have to sublet the whole thing for like a fucking year. And that would actually make me lose my mind.
Yeah. I'm not
So
saying I did it right, but that's how it happened for me.
no, I think this is like par for the course. I feel like that always happens. Like people go to New York to work in New York, but they end up going other places.
Yeah.
Everyone's just like shipped out to like insert whatever gig. So talk about Viking, because
Oh,
I've never even been on a cruise. I have no experience with the cruise life whatsoever.
it's a different life, I can tell you that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I think what was so exciting about the Viking contract is that we were their inaugural cast. So it was their
Mm,
first venture into full-time entertainers because we were on their very first ocean liner. Viking is a luxury cruise line, and I mean, they really are. I mean, gorgeous. Everything about them is that luxury thing. And they'd done riverboats that's still kind of their claim to fame. So the smaller boats, no live on entertainers. And so this was their first venture into the big cruise ship entertainment. And so
hmm
we developed all their shows, the cast of us. Um, and it was a ball. We worked out of Orlando with a production company. And so there was like a lot of experimentation and figuring out what was going to work. And um, the rehearsal process is my favorite. It always has been. If I could be in
hmm
rehearsals for the rest of my life, I would. I don't ever have to perform for an audience. I love the development. I love the daytime schedule. I love everything about rehearsals. And because we were the inaugural cast, we had an extended rehearsal period. So we were in rehearsal for a full month.
Oh,
Uh,
that's nice. A
it was, it,
month?
yeah, it was really nice. Um, and maybe even longer. I'm trying to think where it might have been even longer than a month. And
Oh,
we
that's
developed,
lit.
it was fantastic. And we developed two original pieces that were like jukebox shows.
hmm
Super weird, but great. So much fun. One was called La Peregrina, and it was a spy spoof, sort of like Austin Powers meets James Bond.
Yeah.
And it had songs like Superstition,
hmm
and I'm trying to think, Goldfinger, Witchy Woman, so they were like these jukebox musicals developed for this cruise line.
Yeah.
Just we had a ball with them, and we did an ABBA tribute. I mean, it was so much fun. And then that contract was almost a full year with the rehearsal process, and then they moved us to Italy
hmm
with the boat, and the boat was still in dry dock. So the boat was still being worked on. So this was
hmm
a unique cruise experience all across the board. It wasn't like nothing was cookie cutter yet because we were the first to do all of it. And then we move on the ship and it's not finished. So we're continuing to like develop these shows and rehearse in an unfinished space. Maybe I'll have to find a picture. We spent a couple rehearsal days in full PPE protective gear,
Oh my God.
steel-toed boots, hard hats, and masks.
That is crazy.
It was crazy. They were painting steel with this like extremely toxic, like you can't eat, I mean, just like the worst of the worst commercial grade paint. So like painting, and this was just like the interior of the ship. So we're in full protective gear trying to rehearse these shows in steel-toed boots. I mean, the photos are ridiculous. The whole thing, I mean, that part of the process was not fun and totally absurd because you're not even, I mean, what are you even doing anymore? Uh,
Yeah.
But then when we did our shakedown cruise and got the boat going and spent, I think we were on the boat for 8 months, and it was the best European track you could hope for. And we did the whole Mediterranean to Turkey and back, and then we did
Uh,
the Baltic loop. So we were in Norway and um, Denmark and Germany, and we did go to Russia once, and then Russia was kind of out for a while. But yeah, I mean, we went to 19 countries during that contract. So this was my first gig ever. So in a lot of ways, it was totally spectacular.
oh
Uh,
my God.
and yeah, it was amazing. But I think cruise life for some is a longer term thing. But for me, that international cruise life didn't, I did that one contract and that was it. Because there were some things that were very hard about it. For me, I think I have all these dietary restrictions, and
Yeah.
trying to live on a cruise ship under those restrictions is very, very difficult.
Yeah.
Because it's hard for them to accommodate and they don't even know what you're talking about. So that was particular challenge for me individually, but definitely it was pretty amazing to be 22 and traveling the world and getting paid to sing and dance.
That's crazy. But what, I mean, like, clearly there is all sorts of chaos because there's no contract with no chaos. I
Well,
don't
I
think,
mean,
yeah.
they're rehearsing in full protective gear. That was
Yeah.
fun. Mhm. And there, I mean, what's that show called? Below Deck or whatever? Like the drama
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
happens on cruise ships is unparalleled. Unparalleled. On the bigger boat, it was definitely better because then I went and did river cruising for 2 years, and
Yeah.
there were only 80 crew members on that boat.
Oh, okay. That's great.
It was amazing. I loved the smaller vessels, but the drama between 80 individuals on a steel can versus like the bigger boats that has, how many of us were there? 500 or something crew members. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of if I have any. Oh yeah, we can get to the smaller boats. But yeah, the bigger boat we did pretty well. My cast, we had a really great cast and we all got along as
Yeah.
well. So we really made it. We made it work. Um, Trying to think what other drama. I mean, there were definitely some crappy things. I think one of the things I've learned, especially about working for like the big corporations, is like
Hmm.
patriarchy and the misogyny are strong.
Oh, yeah.
And so ultimately, I think that's why I sort of had to leave that part of the industry. It just got to the point where you can't handle it, and I mean, it's awful and it sucks. And like the owner of Viking, we might have to take this off the podcast. I don't know. I probably That's fine. I don't work for them anymore. But he came and saw the shows and like made comments about costumes depending on the girls. Um, and that stuff. I mean, it happens across the industry to everyone all the time, but it's
Yeah.
especially
It's it's not as bad as it was, but there's definitely like I know so many people that have like worked on the cruise ships and like the weigh-in things and like it's so focused on the aesthetics
yeah.
for the ships. I mean hell, there's like I've gone called in for quite a few ships and like I'm I'm a very specific person when I come into the room. So they know what to expect. But like I have a lot of people that are also like plus size who are going in for character tracks for like book shows and are still certain cruise lines are still repeating the same sentiments
Yeah.
about the aesthetics and stuff, which is just gross, especially when like you have a bunch of dancers that are being dressed in very little on stage and then they're having to have their job their bosses and the commentary on weigh-ins or the how they look at a costume and stuff. It's just grody.
It's gross. Yeah.
And I'm about the big ships, so the small ships you're saying
Oh, the small boats. So I
small
worked
boats.
I went on after the big cruise line. I moved back to New York for about a year and
Hmm.
kept doing the grind and the auditioning and although I
Hmm.
have to say I really enjoyed that year in New York.
Yeah.
No, I wasn't I wasn't working. I was working as a nanny. But then booked small riverboat
Hmm.
out in the Pacific Northwest. And overall, I that experience I enjoyed on a personal level way more than the international boat.
Yeah.
Not in small part because the team was smaller, we had better musicians. They were amazing. We had a four-piece jazz band and they played live for every show. Um, for my first contract, I was just a performer. So there was the
Hmm.
cruise director who was married to, was she the hotel manager at that point? I think. And they had shows that they did. And then it was me and at the time, my fiance, who I met on the first contract
Yeah.
on the big boats.
Hmm.
But so we were the singing dancing duo underneath the cruise director and his partner. And the shows were cheesy, but the band was so good that I mean playing with them. It was also like we had the show lounge. There was a tiny stage and then we performed on the floor. There was
Oh,
like
wow.
I mean it was not there was nothing high tech about it. Like nothing about it was like I mean the costumes were not great. But the band was amazing. Like the talent was great. And so we definitely like made that work. But then the drama through that whole time period was my fiance and I split up mid-contract. I went back.
Hmm.
He I'm not even going to go into that, but it didn't work out and it's all for the best.
Yeah.
But he left. I went back and finished out that contract and trained my next singing dancing partner.
Hmm.
And then the following season became cruise director and got my one woman cabaret. And I got to walk away with four-piece arrangements and got to do that show with the live band. And it was called it's called American Sweetheart.
Hmm.
It chronicles the great ladies of stage and song. So I did Dolly Parton, Carole King, Judy Garland, Ella Fitzgerald. Who else is in there? Um, and I loved that show and I had a great time with it. Um, and so that was the huge perk of the gig for sure. Um, but by the end of my time, my by the end of my second season, and I was cruise directing, and I think at this point I was 26. So I was cruise
Hmm.
director, which meant I was an officer on board the vessel, and I was in charge of the entertainment team. The entertainment
Hmm.
team was grown ass men. My oldest team member, Lawrence was like the sweetheart. He was our Riverlorian, and he would give lectures as we went down the river about Lewis and Clark and the history of the Columbia River, and he was fantastic. And he was in his 60s. So this 26-year-old girl is in
Yeah.
charge of this team of grown men.
Hmm.
And so it was an interesting time. Like that contract burnt me out big time. By the end of
Yeah.
I'd also gotten injured, so I was dancing on bone spurs. I'd torn my hamstring. I was a mess, like a true mess.
Oh
And then
my
in the
gosh.
meantime, I decided to date the captain's son, who was a crew member on board the vessel. And we had a horrible breakup. And this was where the drama comes in. You have 80 people on board, and it was like people were going to take sides. Like I was expecting pink and blue ribbons to like show up on board the boat.
Oh
Like
my God. Just like Gilmore Girls.
yes. I mean it was so unbelievable. And you're like in this situation living on this boat and you're like this can't be real life. And what happens to people on boats is like they think that our little floating steel trap
Hmm.
is life, right? And there's nothing outside of our little bubble. And when you're in it and you're on this boat and you're living on the boat and eating on the boat, like you start to believe it. So I by the end of that contract, I was like really losing my mind. And you're always on. Like that, I
Yeah.
any cruise person you talk to, that is by far the hardest part. And especially for the small boats, you walk out of your room, you are on. There is no off switch. There's no real downtime. And but when I was a cruise director, I also always had a radio on my hip. So I mean, you are always on. And I mean, on both vessels, there were different kinds of emergencies that would happen. We had a fire on the riverboat we had an engine fire.
Oh God.
Nobody got hurt that contract, but yeah, I mean, anyway, there's the drama, there's the tea there. But you just like you can really lose yourself. I think it takes a special person to like stay stable in a cruise contract long term
Mm-hmm.
because it's really easy to like lose sight of the fact that this little group is not the world.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Speaking of chaotic contracts, the reason why we met, Greece.
Very special, very special show.
I loved Greece, and like I talked with everyone with Greece, and we were like, that was a really special show. But holy shit, the process to get there.
That was, I mean, it was quite the feat. It's amazing that we pulled it off.
Barely. By skin of
Barely.
our teeth.
Barely. I mean, so I missed the first, what was it, 10 days of rehearsal?
Yeah.
I missed
Something
most
like
of the
that.
rehearsal. What did I had like 4 days of rehearsal, maybe?
Something like that. And it was just like, thank God she's really good. Cause like like imagine it was like someone else like learning it over like Google Drive links.
I did. I learned most of actually, I think, yeah, I pretty much learned the whole show over Google Drive links.
Yeah.
And at that point, Meg was doing all the roles. She was
Yes.
singing and doing everything.
Meg was originally hired as Patty Simcox,
That's
and
right, which she never did.
which she never did. Like she did it like maybe 3 times, I think, in rehearsal, which was hilarious. But then it was just like because this was peak of Omicron, like literally January. Like
It
we
was.
started like last week of December. It was and it was just like the worst possible time to be doing a show. And like I remember I was coming off of Kinky Boots, and we had basically like during that first week, as we're doing music rehearsal from Greece, I'm getting video calls in Greece rehearsal where I had to be like, I have to step out for half an hour, getting video calls where it's like, well, now we have basically our entire band with COVID. We're gonna try to fly musicians in so we could finish out the run. And as we're in Greece and we already have people out, and we're like, Jesus Christ, what is happening?
What is happening? And I remember, I mean, it was like every day I'm checking in with Johnny. I'm like, hey, still positive. Are you sure? Still positive. Are you sure? Do you want to just let this go? And he hung on, man. He was like, nope, you are my Rizzo. You will be doing the show. And I'm like, okay. And then as soon as I got into rehearsals, Ryan went out for our audience. Our Kaneki went out of
Yep.
rehearsals because he got COVID. And then, I mean, what a time.
We
It's
had we
that
had
we
a week of performances canceled.
That's right.
We
And
had
we did, I remember all of us asking Johnny if we could postpone the show.
Yep.
And that was a big fat no. But we were all like, can we please postpone the show so that we can, one, have an audience,
Yeah.
and two, actually have rehearsal with the cast intact?
Oh my, like it was just like a scary time. And like listen, I'll give there were definitely people in Greece that did not like me because I was pretty vocal about what was going on with Omicron and stuff. Because I was watching every single company shut down in South Florida. Every single company had COVID cases and was closing down and coming off of a show that had multiple canceled performances where we literally had to put our in a different part of the Broward Center building, do remote music directing the live band because he could be in the building as long as that room was not connected to the air conditioning that the theater was. So he could be far, like, I think he was like multiple, he was like in the basement because the AC was a different AC
Right.
unit. And so he was doing it via camera from the basement, which is crazy. What a crazy. But like coming off of that, and I was like, and I was going to like the labs to get tested every single day, rapid and the PCR or whatever, just because like I was doing the overlap, and I was telling everyone like, guys, we need to keep getting tested. This shit is going crazy. Everything is shutting down around us. People are losing their jobs. Like,
It was crazy.
what a chaotic time. And then, oh my God, it was just begging, please let us postpone this thing because this, it's so show, but like all this shit is becoming so fucking out of control. We're like, because I'm trying to think, you were out for 10 days, like the beginning process. Then it was Kaniki. Then it was our sound person, our choreographer. Like it was just like the it was just like the dominoes kept falling, and more people were going out. And then our Marty, our original Marty, was out at the same time. And so like Meg, who was Patty Simcox, who was covering for you originally at the very start, and then it became Alex because then she was covering. I think I was for some of the stuff I was out for Kinky Boots.
Yeah.
She would have to cover me, and then she became Marty.
Yep.
It was just like the chain reaction from hell.
And then we pulled in Katie
Uh
to
huh.
Patty, and she was never in rehearsal. She
Nope.
came in for like one run. Do I have that right?
She came in
Or maybe
during
like,
tech.
yeah, she showed up in tech. I remember her with her iPad, and I was like, "What?" She was amazing. She blew me away. But I was like, "What is happening?" And then I mean, I just can't believe that. Like, I can't believe we pulled it off.
Yeah.
The- And it was good. It was a great show. I
Yeah. Want to have the anxiety that I felt in that process again. A good show came out of it. Honestly, like I would love to like put it up again, like
Wouldn't that be
with
great?
peace,
Yeah.
just with like a little bit of peace, a little less
Oh,
stress.
it would be so great. And we'd actually have an audience. I mean, considering the time that it was, I think our audiences were actually fine. But for
No, yeah.
but for the quality of the show that it was definitely a bummer not to have at least like 50% full. But like we never, I don't,
But
we
we
did.
are also in a LPAC was a 1,400 seater, something like that. For a regional company to do 3 weeks of cuckoo bananas.
Cuckoo bananas. The whole,
That's
it was a cuckoo bananas grease. Hmm.
Greece is the word. Jesus Christ, what a time. No, but I mean, it was wonderful, like being like a pink lady with you, and it was what a crazy time. I talked with Ashley, like and Michael, we like and Harper and stuff. Like it would be something wonderful to like do it again, but just without the external elements making it a fucking nightmare.
Nightmare. I mean, it was very nightmarish. And I think like, yeah, I mean, there were just times that it was scary and it was definitely
Yeah.
not ideal. But we definitely made it work. I mean, it's because that cast, I mean, that's where I met you and Mike, both Michaels,
Yeah.
you know, started that relationship with Johnny and Ashley. I mean, it really was like it was a very, very special group. And ultimately, that's why I'm doing Disenchanted coming up with you and how I ended up doing it last year too, is that
Yeah.
this was what started that South Florida network.
No. So Disenchanted, you came in after we had done the first
Mhm.
one, and you were only supposed to do half the run, right?
I was. Oh yeah, I forgot about that too. COVID. COVID is still around, y'all.
COVID is still around. Um,
supposed to do half of that run, and Ashley was gonna come in and do
Yeah.
another part of the run. And then initially I was slotted to go to APAP, is that what it is? To do the conference.
Yeah. Yeah. The New York conference. Yeah.
And I turned that down. So then Ashley was gonna go do that and then come back and do the show as Cindy.
Hmm.
But then I ended up doing the whole run because she got sick. What a wild ride. And then that was also when you stepped in for snow because we also had two snows during that process. That was a strange thing. We had two snows and yet you ended up going on because the snow that was slotted for those shows was sick, sick, sick. Not with
It
COVID. Flu.
no, it was the flu. Okay. So Disenchanted, we had 1 week of rehearsal, which I felt so bad for like you, Noah, Catherine, like coming
Woo! We were
into
busy ladies.
Sabrina,
Oh
coming
yes.
into the chaos. And like when because we made that schedule the week or two after we closed the first run of Disenchanted. That at that point we were already talking about the fucking tour. We were already like,
Oh, it
well,
was
this is
already on the move. I did not know that.
Disenchanted the very first time. After the first week, we were like, we were already talking about bringing it back. We did not know about tour at that point. But then the Spain tour came.
Oh yeah.
And the Spain tour, I think, kind of gave Eminem the push that like this is a really good thing that we've got going on and we should be pushing forward with this. And so at that point we were talking about the tour, but and so we were like, it was an idea at that point that like I think we're going to try to push to do this thing, to tour this thing. We're definitely going to try to come back. And so we couldn't get Kravis, I think, for that section or whatever. So we went to Boca.
We did.
but yeah, no. So we once again, it's like crazy when I think about how long this whole fucking thing has been going on for, because it's like almost going to be by the time that this tour closes, it'll be 2 years with this production for me, which is like cuckoo bananas. But anyway, so yeah, no, it was 1 week of rehearsal, like 6 days of rehearsal to like put you guys into a previously existing thing. And of course, it's a show with so much so wordy, so fucking wordy. And like, I just remember being in rehearsals being like, oh, these poor princesses that are having to deal with this bullshit of getting into this show. I'm like, oh, Jesus Christ. But yeah, I mean, you tell your opinion about uh, what I like to refer to as Disenchanted to Electric Boogaloo. Um,
I think that about sums it up. Electric Boogaloo. I mean, so stepping in for Cindy, one, her track is so busy. I mean,
yep,
she never stops. And if she's not on stage, she's running around backstage to get a prop or put on something ridiculous or change her shoes or whatever. So Cindy is so busy. And I mean, a huge part of that for me was when I got the rehearsal schedule, which came out pretty early. I got it sooner than I think I got it for this next round. But
yeah,
I studied hard before coming into rehearsal. Like I worked really hard to make sure I was prepared. And if I hadn't, I don't think I would have been able to pull it off.
yeah,
Um, but I mean, part of it was that you guys had a show before we got in there. So while it wasn't an intense week of rehearsals,
yeah,
the original Princess is like, you guys were just holding it down. So it made it possible to like step in and do the thing. Um, and then I'm trying to think of what was like the most. Honestly, I had a freaking blast. I loved playing Cinderella. I had so much fun.
yeah,
At the end of the day, while I was so bummed that Ashley was sick, I was really grateful that I ended up getting to do the whole run.
yeah.
think with the amount of work that I put in, it would have been really hard to like pass that off during
Yeah.
that process. Um, I'm trying to think of anything crazy.
Oh, I mean, there were so many things crazy. I mean,
Everything about it was a little crazy.
I mean, like there were issues with the facility. The facility was just not a great facility to host what we do, because I've been there to see like jazz concerts, and I think,
Great.
one mic kind of thing. It's a little bit different than uh seven of us running around uh singing nonstop in wireless mics versus handhelds, and chaos, and then
Was not ideal.
and
Just
then and then me having to go on, which was the
I was gonna say the craziest part about that contract was Kat going on, and you went on with like 24 hours notice, less than 24 hours notice,
I
12,
went on with 4 hours notice.
4.
Yeah. So what happened was, and the people that I kind of briefly talked about this in a
I
different
think I
episode in season one.
too.
But so what happened was, when we very first time we did the thing, we were talking about the tour and all this stuff. I remember being in rehearsals the very first time and being like, I really like Snow. What a bitch. I love her, you know? And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to throw my hat in. And I was like, hey, Johnny, I'm not thinking about, the Boca run in January, but like, I would love for the tour to be considered for a Snow White understudy. I
Yeah.
think that I could do it. And he was like, I'll think about it. Um, yeah, we don't need it for Boca. We've got two Snow Whites. We would not need an understudy for it. We got two. We got two. We're fine. And I was like, yeah, noted. That makes sense. We've got two people to do that role. I don't need to look at it. Cut. And now the whole process, I had gotten sick when I was in doing the panto in New Hampshire. So everyone got
Going
sick
through it.
during that. What?
You were going through it.
Yeah, no. So I was making my way through it. I was, the first weekend of shows, I got through it, but at the end, I was like, I'm losing my voice currently. I am fully losing my voice. Maybe because I'll have a couple days off, I will be fine. I think the Tuesday, I was like, I'm actually like, I'm missing huge chunks of my voice. I started a round of steroids and stuff. Thank God I did when I did. The day of, I think it was a Thursday, the show, or Friday. I think it was a Thursday because I think we did 5 and 5. I'm pretty sure. Uh, Thursday, 1:30 p.m. before
Yep.
7:30 show, 8 o'clock show, something like that. 1:30, I get a call from Johnny. Hey, Kat. Hypothetically, if you had to go on for Snow White, what things would we have to do to make that work? Hypothetically, we don't know if this is happening. And so I've just woken up to this phone call because I was sleeping in. I was like, let me just sleep as much as possible so my voice will be back. Because Mulan is a very hard sing.
Oh yeah.
And then I have to yell for Rapunzel. So I was like, let me just sleep as much as possible. I get that phone call. And so we talked about like logistically, like what I could do in that track if I had to go on.
Yeah.
And he was like, we don't know if it's going to happen. I will call you back and let you know. So after that conversation, I immediately pull up the archival video from the prior production. Now we have some changes, but I was like, I was worried. I was like, oh fuck, what if I have to go on for this part tonight when I'm not the understudy, never been the understudy, never played this part, never really looked at this part, just kind of heard it peripherally.
Just put it out there that I could do it at some point down the line.
3 p.m. Johnny calls, goes, can you do it tonight? We will put the script in the storybook.
Yep.
Um, then I said, okay, because I was like, it's one night. I will make it work. And it
The
was,
rest
I
of
think it
the
was
run.
the, it, yeah, yeah. So I drove down. I got to the theater at 4, and thank God Leah came. Like, but everyone was coming early because they were like, "Oh Jesus Christ!" I immediately 4 p.m. started getting into my stage makeup. Thank God I brought my own personal red dress.
Dress. Oh man.
I have it in the bag over here. I haven't worn it since. I feel it's cursed. But but yeah, no. So now I laugh every having to go on, and thank God you guys were so wonderful. Like help me get through that.
I think we were all like such cat fangirls. We were all just like so thrilled to see you in the role. No, I mean we did. We all talked about one that you are like the OG professional. You weren't just good. You were amazing. And we were all
Thank
just
you.
like we had the best fucking time being there to support you and just like watching you do your thing. It was yeah. I mean, that was chaos for you. For the rest of us, it was like this. I mean, it was a little bit chaotic, but like on my end, I just got to be even more of a weirdo as Cindy being like, "Oh, we got a new snow." I don't even like it was I don't know. It made for those of us not in your shoes of extreme anxiety and intensity, like it was amazing. It was.
Listen. I'm so grateful to you gals because like you really helped me keep my head afloat. Because really, especially that first night, disassociated. I was fully like I would come off and just go through the script. I had no idea what was going on. It was very much like I had no plan. Uh but yeah, now I laugh every time Johnny's like, "You won't have to go on," because every time he says that, I end up going on. When during the tour, the first leg of the tour, he was like, "It's only 5 cities, Cat. You're not going on." Day day 2 of travel, 6:30 a.m. Cat will be going on as Sleeping Beauty. So now I've performed 4 princesses in this
I
fucking
was gonna
show.
ask how many you've done. You've done Snow, Sleepy, Rapunzel, Mulan.
4. Nightmare. Anyway, speaking of doing multiple princesses, so now coming to the Disenchanted tour,
Yes.
you will be covering Cindy, but now you will be playing Belle and Little Mermaid.
Yeah.
Objectionably, the most fun track of the show.
I think it's arguable.
I think it's the most fun. I think it's the most fun. How are you feeling? Because we've got what,
Two
a week
weeks.
or yeah, a week or two, yeah, before we get into it.
I am studying because now this time we have 5 days of rehearsal, and I looked at the rehearsal schedule, and a lot of the rehearsal schedule is just for me because
We've been
most of
with
the
it.
cast has done whatever track they're in. Um,
Most of the rehearsals for you and for our new Mulan because she has done the show, but she has not done our version.
okay, so she's got to learn our production.
Yeah, yeah. So I feel like it's mainly that, and it's mainly rehearsals. And I think, and I did see that there's some understudy time. And I'm like, thank
Yeah,
Christ.
yeah, I'll have a run for my understudy of Cindy as well. But I'm just
Yeah,
looking forward to it. I love this show. I love all of you. It's just like people I love spending time with. So really, what could be bad? And I'm just like I was talking about prepping for Cindy. I'm doing the same for Little Mermaid and Belle, and just trying to come in ready. Mainly so I can have more fun, and I'm not going to be like stressed during the rehearsal process, and we'll
yeah.
just,
I
you know,
think
fine
I think
tune.
you'll have a blast because that part, those 2 parts are just so fun. We're gonna have such a ball.
Oh, I will. I
Oh
can't.
my god.
Johnny called me. I can't remember when was this. This was like, oh man, this fall. Whenever he called me to talk about the production, and he was kind of nervous on the phone, and I'm like, Johnny, what's up? He's like, well, I didn't know if you'd be open to playing another princess. And I was like, what? Yes, of course, I will do anything. And then he's like, how would you feel about doing Little Mermaid and Belle? And of course, I'm obsessed with Leah
Yeah.
and real bummed that I won't get to work with her this time. And it's big shoes to fill. And like I'm drawing inspiration from what she did with the role and also making it more Jordan. So that's fun as well to like step into, you know, a friend's
Yeah.
spot for a minute. Um, but yeah, I mean, and it was so funny that Johnny was nervous to ask me, and I'm like, you know, I'd do anything for you, Johnny. Like, just, and of course, why in the world would I say no to those tracks?
Yeah.
So yeah, can't wait.
I'm just so excited. I'm so excited that like we get to have this time we get to sit down for these legs, and it's nice to have more of the princesses that I've already worked with to
Yeah,
like come back and like to do this things. I'm very excited. I'm very excited because we've got Aaron and Eileen and just
definitely.
Noah, and we've got Ryan coming back to MD it and stuff.
Yeah,
So like we've got and you'll now get to work with some of our New York girlies who are New England girlies who are fantastic as well. So it's gonna be great.
yeah. It is. It is gonna be. I can't wait.
But so to kind of wrap it up, I wanted to talk about arts first, and what you've got going on with them as well. It's your studio.
My studio, yeah. So I now live in Salida, Colorado, which is a small
Hmm.
mountain town about 3 hours outside of Denver. And when I moved out here, I really thought it would be a total shift because established arts first during COVID and did everything online and taught virtually and then taught in person in South Florida. And then moving out here, I really didn't think there would be a market for it.
Yeah.
I was very, very, very wrong. And I started teaching voice and word got around and it was just like bam, packed. Now I'm working 5 days a week for myself. Um, which is a really beautiful thing. It also means I can take a month off to go do Disenchanted. Um,
Yeah.
and the bulk of what I'm doing with Arts First are private lessons, private vocal lessons. And then I also have I have 5 classes. So I have a musical theater class, which is, singing, dancing, acting, the whole deal with some of my younger students. Um,
Hmm.
and then I have a pop rock vocals class for my teens, which is so much fun. And then I have a handful of classes that are small group vocals, and the kids learn a solo and then they get to perform their solo for the studio showcase. And I do 2 a year. I've got my spring and my winter showcase. Um, yeah, and I couldn't be more grateful. Salida has been so kind to me, and I definitely like filled in a niche here. Everyone, I mean, the kids here, they're such theater kids. But there's a couple of community theaters out here that are doing a lot. They're doing a lot of programming, and the kids just eat it up. And it's been fun to step in. And there's a surprising amount of talent in this small town. So yeah, it's been this really joyful venture. Owning and running a small business is no joke. It is not for the
Yeah.
faint of heart. Somebody on Instagram the other day said you made it look easy, and I was like, that is so kind. I'm like, great. I'm doing something right if I make it look easy, but it is a trip. We call it the small town hustle, like there is
Hmm.
definitely a hustle to it, but it's on my terms, so I really couldn't be more grateful. And I love teaching. I really
Yeah.
love performing. I love that I get to come and do Disenchanted with y'all, but it really like it's like where my soul sits. Like it really
Hmm.
is definitely like a calling, and um I'm pretty good at
There you go. There you go.
it. So yeah, having a ball.
Yeah. So I guess the last question, because we do have a decent amount of like students, like college students, some high school students that do listen in, who are students of other guests that we've had on, and students of Michael and stuff. So if
Love that.
one piece of advice you would give to the students listening who are looking to pursue a career in the performing arts? You can give 3 if that's easier.
3.
I don't know. What's easy? What's easiest for you?
I think that my biggest piece of advice would be to make sure that as you're pursuing this art form, that you also find the other parts of your life that you love and figure out how to have a little bit of both.
Yeah.
And, as you're pursuing this career, yeah, it takes a lot, but you also need to be like a real well-rounded person. So figure out what else you love and bring that into your work as a performer. That's what I got.
Impeccable. Perfect. The kids need to hear it. The adults need to hear it too.
I mean,
I need to hear it sometimes.
It's so easy to get so wrapped up and make being a performer everything. But if you don't have something else, you're not going to be all that compelling on stage. So what else is it that you love? And figure out what that means.
Oh, thank you for coming on to our silly little podcast.
I love your podcast. When you guys launched it, I was so stoked. I've listened to a lot of it. I've fallen off a little bit, but I need to go back and catch up on some episodes. But
it's okay. We got plenty of episodes to listen to.
I think it's amazing.
But thank you so much. I love you dearly. I'm so excited that we get to do more Princess Posse stuff together.
Let's go. I'll see you in a couple weeks.
I know, right? It's going to be fantastic.
Yay.
But anyway, thank you so much for listening to Nonic Nonsense. We come to you on your dark days on our Mondays. We'll drop new episodes. So everyone stay happy, stay healthy, no COVID, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah.